Hi everyone, this is Dr. Dilmar. Today we are going to have a brief lecture on 3 different topics. If you recall, last week was our first week of class and we came together for that live session where we went over the ins and outs of the course. And now we're already in week 2. So for week 2, I am going to review a couple of topics that I think will help you to be successful. One thing to note, and I kind of mentioned this last week as well, is that most of your work is in the McGraw-Alex online textbook. So you have textbook readings and you have assignments through that Alex program. That's going to be your most comprehensive study material is your online textbook, and then I'll augment some of that through these recordings. But also I mentioned last week Khan Academy, K-A-H-N. If you get really stuck on something, so for example, order of operations is here on the screen and I'm about to talk to you about that. But if you wanted to see some additional notes or videos or how-tos or even take some practice quizzes that breaks down the answers for you, you could, for example, Google Khan, K-A-H-N, Academy, and then order of operations within that Google search. And it'll take you directly to that section of the website. It's a very well-renowned website that math teachers and math students use across the world. So I think that could be a helpful tool for you as well. But definitely your primary source is your Alex online study materials, your books, and things of that nature. Also, before I dig into the lecture material for today, I wanted to mention again that you're not memorizing a whole lot for this class. This is not a memory class. This is really allowing you to engage with the math, kind of touch it, feel it, explore, remind yourself of certain key foundational concepts. All of the assignments are set up where you can take them multiple times, some as many as 5 to 7 times, even the midterm and the final. Because again, it's not about you just memorizing, it's about you really having a cognitive exploration, like to be able to really mentally just be involved with the math. So I don't want anybody to be stressed out and feel like they have to master or memorize any of the concepts. It's really about building fluency and having exposure, right? So that covers some of the basics that hopefully will help you be comfortable with the material. Outside of the McGraw-Alex material and outside of the midterm and the final, you also have your college readiness assessment. It's an intuitive program, which means that when you are inside of that program, you're answering questions and it's going to kind of log how well you do and give you other math based on how well you do. And you can come back to that all throughout this class. The goal is to get a 70% before you end the class at a minimum. Honestly, most people end up with high 80s or A's. So that's something that's not like a sit down and take it memorize test as well. But for today, let's go ahead and jump into the first of our 3 topics, okay? So what I'm going to do is actually upload these notes into your class as well. That way you have the video and you have the notes. Because the last thing I want to do is read to you. I just want to explain and bring attention to a couple of key concepts. And then a lot of you could take and maybe print these out and have it in front of you. I always like to have like a math notebook. So I'm very visual. It seems like the older we get, the more visual we are. So what I would suggest is that you print these out and keep them in a handy dandy little notebook or folder next to you so you can just refer to them quickly. It also makes it easy so you don't have to toggle between multiple different screens. So I always do suggest printing a few of these key things out. So here what's in front of you, I'm sure you already started reading, is PEMDAS. So this is your order of operations. This really is going to be relevant throughout any math that you do because you're going to have order of operations throughout all of your math work. So it doesn't matter if you've moved on, quote unquote, from the order of operations, like you're not learning explicitly about order of operations, you'll still need to know the order of operations to solve this. And some of you may remember this from high school. You might have had a cute little acronym. Some people always says, oh yeah, remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? So this is something that probably is going to be familiar to you. And essentially this is the order in which you're solving the operations in your expression. So I always like to say that there's a math vocabulary, or there's a math language. So this is really about learning the language, right? Like we read from left to right. So instead of reading from left to right, you're doing your order of operations. And math can be sentences as well. So this is a math sentence here where it says simplified expression. Instead of sentence, we call it expression in math. So then what you'll do is you'll actually have this operation here broken down for you step by step. So you can see it's taking that PEMDAS and it's going through the steps. So it's telling you now, next, then, and it comes up with your final answer. So I would even say maybe try a few of these, apply this, and see if you come up with the same answer. And then I've got some transcripted notes here at the bottom in case anybody has any kind of hearing deficits or language deficits. Then I have the transcription of notes here at the bottom for you. That's just an accommodation that I'm providing for those who might need it, right? So it might be easier for you to read than to hear. All right, so now we're going to go to the next topic. And so what actually is this algebraic expression, Dr. Delmar, that you're talking about? So let's look at that. So an algebraic expression is exactly what I said. It's like a sentence. It's a phrase, right? So you can have numbers, you can have letters, you can have operations, which means what's the function, what's the thing you're doing, adding, subtracting, dividing, multiplying, etc. And so this gives you some examples of mathematic expressions. The one thing I want to bring your attention to here is being really careful about the language and the instructions for what you're given to do on a math assignment. A lot of times people jump right into solving, but sometimes the question might not even be to solve. It might be, tell me what exists in this math expression. Tell me what you should do next. So just make sure you really do read the instructions very carefully because you're not always solving. But why are we using letters? So here you can see, and again, I'm not going to read verbatim to you, that essentially variables are placeholders because we don't know a number. So a lot of times we are solving. When you look at the instructions, you're going to see, what is it asking me to solve for? Because sometimes you might have multiple variables, and so if you have x's and y's or z's and a's or t's, you may not be solving for all the letters. You may just be solving for one of them. So again, pay attention to those instructions. So let's talk about that real world example. Remember I said every week for weeks 2, 3, and 4, you're going to just make a connection to the real world in that discussion board. This is just your voice, your words. You don't have to write replies. It just helps us build a kind of a learning community and also make a connection. So when we talk about real world applications, we often talk about mathematic models. And so mathematic models are just a way to help us solve these real life solutions or problems. So we're taking the math and we're transferring it to our life. And here's an example. You might know them as word problems. I'll give you a minute to look at that. And I'll make that a little bit bigger for you. So our algebraic expressions and our models are going to help us solve these problems and help us use the math to make sense. I provided a practice problem. So you can see here, you're not really quote unquote solving, but you're writing an expression. So you needed to look at the instructions here to see, oh, I'm not solving this, I'm just writing what the expression would look like. That's where you really want to make sure that you're paying careful attention to those instructions. And then finally, I do want to review with you absolute value. Again, I know you might come upon some concepts in your math course that aren't covered in lectures. It's just impossible in a 4-week class to cover every single topic. I really do like the ALEX system, the way they've got the videos and the guiding models set up and the prompts. And so I definitely want you to look at that ALEX textbook, right? Open it and actually look at the chapter readings. Don't just go straight to the assignments. And I set it up so you have access to 4 or 5 different resources within Alex. That is the resources that I've provided to you and connected to your work. And then also, of course, the Khan Academy thing might help. But I do want to review absolute value. So what is this thing called absolute value? A lot of times we jump into solving, like I said a minute ago, but this is a language, right? It's a math language. So we really want to make sure that we understand what this terminology is. And so what is absolute value? So we're defining it just like we would define another word in the English language. And so we're defining absolute value as a number from 0. So pretty much distance is always positive. So absolute value is always going to be positive or 0. So it's just 0. So absolute value is the positive number. So you won't have any negatives as the final solution. So I think that's probably the biggest explanation. A lot of people are like, oh, we deal with negatives and positives in math. But if it's absolute value, it's always just really simple. Honestly, kind of, it's just really the positive. And this is how here you see the 2 lines on both sides of the X that we basically indicate absolute value when we're writing. And this is an example of solving absolute value equations. So you're thinking about 2 possibilities. Is it going to be positive or negative? And then what's the absolute value? And you're actually going to solve for both possibilities, right? So absolute value is giving you a positive, but you want to think, what if that number was negative, or what if that number was positive? So you're essentially just putting in a negative and a positive option to solve. So again, I'll drop these 3 things for you. I'll just scroll back here to the top and I'll go back to the original Unit 1 notes here. I'm also going to drop a technical helpline for you. If you have any kind of issues with any of the tools, or like your browser's not working, or some of the graphing functions don't work in McGraw, their technical helpline is super helpful. So I'm going to drop that for you along with the video and the notes today. I hope all is well. Text me if you need anything. I've dropped my phone number several times, so a few of you had texted me. Again, just a reminder, we're a learning community, so I do not mind that at all. I'm here to help you. So I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, I can't talk to my professor. No, I'm totally open for you. So definitely holler at me, text me, send me a message, okay? Have a great day.